With the best brand of football in Idaho, this is the 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
Hey, that's right. Welcome in another edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. It is brought to you by Ideal, Idaho's college savings program, as well as the Idaho Transportation Department. And we are broadcasting live on a Wednesday night, October 23rd, 2024, on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. Of course, you can tune into the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast live, and if you are live tonight, thanks for being with us. You can also tune in on replay anytime at those three destinations, and you can listen to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast at IdahoSports.com. All of our Prepcasts are on the left side of the homepage, or you can download our podcast version of this wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. My name is Brandon Baney, but let's bring in our 8-man experts, the people you really want to hear from tonight. You know him as the operator and owner of the Idaho 8-Man Instagram and X accounts. It's Will Hoenike. Will, what's going on?
I don't think anybody really wants to hear from me. I think they just tolerate me.
Well, there was somebody on the panel that was everyone tolerates last week. It wasn't you or Coach. So
This is true. This is true. Although he might be watching right now, so we should be careful what we say.
That's true. Mind our P's and Q's. We'll bring him in, though, the guy that basically delivered the Coach's Corner segment last week and then did the mic drop. Peace out. Yeah. See you guys later.
Bailed, then he was done.
It is Coach Lane Kirkland from Cary High School. What's going on, Coach?
Hey, yeah, I took a sick day or a half-day leave, something there. Man, I hate to tap out on those things. I sure enjoy being on this show here, but glad I was able to get a few words in before I ducked out there. So good to be back here, hoping to stay connected all night through the end. Yes. Good to be here.
On nights when there's multiple things going on at Cary High School, everyone's competing for the same precious internet, and so yeah, it can be touch and go sometimes.
The hamster gets tired, man. That's a lot of work for that poor little guy.
Yeah, especially for our dial-up internet here.
For sure. I was going to say that's not going to be a problem. At least for the next couple of weeks, because the Cary Panthers volleyball team, which has been playing a lot of good, exciting volleyball this year, Coach, they officially qualified for state. They're moving on to the 1A state tournament.
Sure did. First time in history, the junior high girls won, the JV girls won, and the varsity girls won their conference. So things are rolling over the net this year.
Got a new dynasty build in there. You got some people to compete with.
Yeah, let's go. It's good news.
Yeah, Coach Teresa Smith does a good job with those Panther girls, for sure. So one more thing here, Coach. I did my civic duty today. I voted. This says Hoenike County on there. I was going to write in Lane Kirkland as a write-in candidate on my ballot, but that would only go so far in Blaine County. Unfortunately, I'm in Hoenike County. So,
well, thanks. I appreciate that. I'll do you a favor and write you in, man.
Yeah. See what I mean? Nobody writing me in. You're just writing each other in. I don't need to be here.
Okay.
I'm just here for the Ridge. Wait, Ridge over there.
Well, Will, we absolutely need you for this week's edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast, because our game of the week, that's where we always start the Prepcast. What was the most exciting game, start to finish, from the week that was? Implications sometimes play into it. Sometimes it's just the most exciting game start to finish, and sometimes it's stuff that's even like beyond the action on the field. And that's where we're going to go for our game of the week. Last week, Salmon River made the trip to Horseshoe Bend. Pretty fun, spirited, competitive back and forth game. The Savages ultimately win by a score 30-22 over Horseshoe Bend. It was a big win for a young Salmon River team. But Will, you did such an eloquent job of writing about your experience. You went and took in some of this game live this past Friday in Horseshoe Bend. But you got to chatting with someone very interesting on the sidelines.
Yeah, we get asked a lot, and Coach, I'm sure you get asked sometimes. Brandon, I'm sure you get asked sometimes, why do you do this? And earlier in the day, I'd been up in Cascade for the Ramblers game against Council, and was talking to a Council fan, and they're like, well, I I know you don't get a lot out of this. And I'm like, yeah, but I do. I don't get, it's not a monetary thing. It's not something I'm even attempting to monetize at this point, maybe sometime in the future, but it's just fun to get to visit with people and go different places and see different things and just experience small town Idaho. And I got to do that at the Horseshoe Bend game, although not in the way I anticipated. I knew it was senior night for Horseshoe Bend. So the players like Trey Bauer and Mason Bellevue and some of those players that were seniors and they were playing their last game on their home field. That was cool to be there for them and get to experience that. But as I was walking up and down I wound up on the Salmon River sideline. I just got to talking to this older gentleman. He was in his nice flannel jacket and he had a Salmon River T-shirt on, and he started telling me that he lived in the Horseshoe Bend area, not too far from Horseshoe Bend, but his grandson played for Salmon River. So this was an opportunity for him to come watch his grandson play. And as he was watching, he was telling me that he had a degenerative eye disorder, so his vision wasn't as good as it used to be, and sometimes it was kind of hard to tell what was going on. But, as we walked up and down the sideline and he was describing his past, he used to wrestle. His name was Don Davis. He used to coach in the Gooding area, wrestling and football, and just shooting the breeze with him as he was sitting there, following the game. That's what he was doing. And that's what so many people do in these small communities. It's really, it's a family affair, and it's, Grandpa was there. There were other family members that were there, but this was Grandpa's opportunity to see his grandson play. And his grandson, Riley Davis, had been injured the early part of the season. So he's only been back the last couple of games. So this might be the only time Grandpa gets him to watch him play this year. And that's why I do it, is just to have those kinds of experiences and those kinds of conversations. And Riley was nice enough to oblige by scoring the game's first touchdown and getting the 2-point conversion, which final score was 30-22. That's 8 points. Riley Davis, he got it done. It was cool. It was a lot of fun. And the last thing Grandpa said, he got a Dr. Pepper there from the concession stand, and I was getting ready to leave, and it was chilly. I don't know how it was where you guys were, but it was getting a little chilly in Horseshoe Bend. And he just looked at me with a smile on his face and said, "Great night for a football game." And I couldn't have agreed more.
And those stories, Coach, that's really what it's all about. These young men go off and after their high school careers, and sometimes they come back home, and sometimes they end up in other places in Idaho. And so it's just that 8-man network, gets bigger and bigger, it seems like.
Right. And I could share a quick story to kind of go along with that. Then we can get back to the game here. But Saturday or Friday night here at the Cary game, I ran into these two old guys that came that went to school here back in the 50s and 60s. And I said, "Who are you?" And behold, it was the old Cary Comet, Johnny Briggs, that ran here in 1961, ran here in 59 with my dad, a great sprinter. And so we recognized him at halftime. He went on to run at ISU, but just here to watch a game on a cold night. And it was kind of fun to see, show him his long jump record still holds at 22.9 from 1961 here at this school. But that's why we do it. And that's what these guys have loved, is these old high schools they've been to forever, and their grandkids and posterity. It's a lot of fun. Idaho is a great place to live.
That's awesome. And I guess I'll share, since we're all sharing our stories here. Last night, Tuesday evening, I was at the District 1 volleyball semifinals at North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene. I was the PA announcer, public address announcer on the mic. And so the first match was Mullen versus Kootenai, a couple of teams that aren't playing football in Idaho this year, but have volleyball teams. And then the second matchup was Wallace and Lakeside, which we're going to talk about in football here in just a second. But I was talking to Wallace's athletic director, Corey Miller, and we were talking a little bit about the team and the game and stuff. And I kind of said, like, yeah, Cooper Miller, that kid sounds like he's the real deal. I can't wait to see him. And he goes, "Yeah, that's my son." And I said, oh, I never put 2 and 2 together, but yeah, that probably makes sense. And he's like, yeah, hey, he actually tunes into you guys every week. And I think he'll get a kick out of meeting you. So he called him down. He was there watching the volleyball girls and got to meet him and shake his hand. And what a great young man. Just very polite, very respectful. So it's always cool when we get to actually meet and interact with these kids that we're talking and writing about every week.
Yeah, and I hear from some of them through the social media platforms. You know, they'll say they saw a post or they saw a picture, or they'll pass along a link about one of their teammates or something like that. And you know, there's a genuine excitement. And I was talking to a dad of one of the council players, and he said the kids talk about this Prepcast. It's a big deal to them, and that's a lot of why I started it. Is I saw, to go way back. Coach, back when you were winning the early state championships, I was a member of the media here in the Boise area. And as those media resources have been trimmed, the people who've lost out have been the councils, the Carries, the Salmon Rivers. They don't get as much coverage and attention. And it's not because the Twin Falls Times-News doesn't want to go to Cary. They don't have anyone to send to Cary. So that's largely why I started this, is I saw the kids that were losing out. And if I can do even the least little thing, and by I mean not only me, but us collectively, to shine a little bit of a light on some of these kids and let them know that they are important. People do pay attention. People are watching. People do care. Then again, that's the why. You know, that's why we do this.
Yeah, and I think the overall landscape has shifted a little bit too, Will. When we first started doing this Prepcast, you know, we had a hard time getting that information, finding those stats, finding those stories. And we kind of put the call out and we said, hey, look, we know media resources are limited. We're going to need some cooperation from the coaches out there. And it's just incredible to see the partnership that's forming. And obviously having an acclaimed coach like Coach Kirkland helps us open some doors too. Big help, yes. The relationship between us, IdahoSports.com, and the coaches, I feel like has never been stronger, Coach Kirkland.
Yeah, it's I've heard a lot of great things about the show that we put on here, and of course about you guys that have been around for a long time. And what a privilege to be able to join you, but to give back to all these communities is what we're all about. And these kids need recognition, just like Tom Brady.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, all right. Well, I didn't think we were going to detour to talk, but it's good. It's good to recognize all of the great support. That's why we do the show, certainly. So, okay. So Salmon River beats Horseshoe Bend 30-22. Let's talk about the other long pin conference game you were at, Will. We'll go 1A football here off the top, in District 3 specifically. Council beats Cascade 30-14. This was actually, though, like a pretty tight game most of the way through, right, Will?
It was a really good game. And Council, they got up early. They forced a couple turnovers and they got an early lead, and they did just enough to hold Cascade kind of at arm's length from that point on. But what Cascade did is they didn't roll over and they didn't go away. You know, they kept grinding, they kept fighting. Stuart Derrick had a touchdown pass to Cole Olson. Cole Olson had another touchdown a little bit later, a long touchdown run. And I thought what they did a really good job of. Council can hit some home runs. They don't have Garrison Zielinski right now. He's out injured. But they still have, obviously, Owen Hatfield. They have Decker McClin. They have, you know, Jimmy Tucker. That kid's going to be a really good ball player here he's a really good ball player right now, but he's a freshman. Give him a couple years and he's going to be a dude up there in Council. They can blow the barn doors off if you don't watch out. And I thought Cascade did a tremendous job making Council kind of grind it out in 5-yard, 6-yard, 7-yard chunks instead of like the 75-yard home run play. But then I also thought Council's defense was fantastic. Forced 4 turnovers. Jimmy Tucker had 2 interceptions. One of them would have been a pick 6 if not for an inadvertent whistle. But, you know, they've got Wade Vining playing middle linebacker. They've got Remington Kroll. That kid's going to be, you know, he's another one. He's a sophomore and he's already a beast. I mean, this is a team, you know, I think a lot of attention has been, and rightfully so, has been placed on Cary and on Dietrich down in District 4. Council has a chance if they can avoid the self-inflicted wounds, and they do have the occasional problems with, a turnover with the fumbles, and they had a few penalties in this game against Cascade that harpooned a couple of drives. If they can avoid that, they have the talent to be right there with Carey and Dietrich and some other teams when this thing is all said and done next month.
Yeah, and this sounds like the same story we heard last year. Council was coming into the playoffs as kind of a dark horse, and then their candle got snuffed before they could even really get it lit. Coach Kirkland, it just seems to me on the surface, and again, I'm observing from far away, boy, it seems like Council just starts slow for whatever reason, and a lot of times they're all right because they get stronger as the game goes on. But I think back to that playoff loss to Dietrich last year where they dug themselves too big of a hole early. And you tell me if I'm misreading it, but I don't know. It just seems like they seem to start slow, and that's kind of what happened in this Cascade game a little bit.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with mindset and concentration and focus. And you have to start somewhere. You have to find that motivation early on. You have to commit to having a great first quarter, a great first drive. You should have that goal to score on that opening drive and set the tone. Perhaps they need to reevaluate that a little bit and make sure that they come out guns a-blazing from the get-go and have their best performance for 4 quarters. That's important.
Yep. So Council, with that win, wraps up the Long Pin Conference title as well. And now the battle for the other spots, Garden Valley and Tri-Valley already played. Tri-Valley had the head-to-head win there. Garden Valley is going to play Cascade this week in what's going to end up being a pretty monumental game. But before we get to that, we do have to talk about Tri-Valley, that Tri-Valley Garden Valley matchup, a very tight game, 26-24. This game was tied 6-6 after a quarter of play. Tri-Valley then, outscores Garden Valley 14-6 in the second quarter. And so Tri-Valley leads 20-12 at halftime. Titans, they trade scores basically in the third quarter, and they lead 26-18 going into the fourth. Garden Valley scores to bring the Wolverines to within 2. But Coach Kirkland, I guess they weren't taking notes when you were doing your coach's corner on the 2-point conversions there because they couldn't get it. And Tri-Valley ends up winning 26-24. This was a fun game, actually.
Oh, boy. It looks like they went by 6s. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
6s of 1 out of 8 conversions. That's a battle. The low scoring game like that, it probably was hard to get 3 yards in those. Those did come into play and certainly did matter. The drive, that just shows that Tri-Valley is willing to fight all the way to the end there and to hang on. And defense mattered most on that last extra point in that game.
Yeah, I talked to Tyler Wagner, the Tri-Valley head coach, over the weekend, and he was highly complimentary of both teams' defensive coordinators and defensive game plans. 26-24 doesn't sound like a quote-unquote low-scoring game, but in 8-man football, that's a pretty low-scoring game. And he said, Garden Valley had a great defensive game plan, and they did a great job executing it. They limited some big plays. Tri-Valley limited some big plays, and you wind up with, the one 2-point conversion that was converted. There's your difference.
Yeah, it was a fun battle for sure. We usually highlight the offensive guys. Let's give the defensive guys some love. Moyne Ingram, 8 tackles for Tri-Valley. Elias DeVries had 4 sacks. I
want to know what his totals are, because that's like the 3rd time this year he's had 4 sacks in a game. That kid's a beast.
Yeah, he's long and lean, and he's very impressive. I'll see if I can get a track down a season total. And then you look at on the Garden Valley side defensively, Rex Fackrell, 17 tackles, 1 sack and a forced fumble. Trevor Korn had 12 tackles and a sack, and Max Yearsley had 12 tackles and a forced fumble. Coach, that's 3 guys hitting double-digit tackles.
That's amazing. You don't see that very often. You might see 2, but 3, that says everything about that game there. And those kind of scores, honestly, are kind of championship kind of scores, where it's just hard fought for every single yard. So great preparation for what's to come here.
Yeah. Will, on the season, Elias DeVries, 13 sacks. He's averaging 1.5 sacks per game.
That's something. even at the 8-man game, and I even in air quotes, if you can make that quarterback uncomfortable, you've won half the game.
Yeah. So let's take a look here at the 1A football landscape. We're looking at the Long Pin Conference specifically here. Conference standings on the left, schedule of games on the right. So Council has won the Long Pin at 4-0. They're going to get a first-round bye. Tri-Valley has essentially wrapped up second place. Their lone game that remains is with Horseshoe Bend. So even if they were to lose that, they have defeated both Cascade and Garden Valley. So they get the head-to-head there. So Tri-Valley is going to finish second. Cascade and Garden Valley play this Friday in a battle for third place in the conference. But more importantly, for the Max Preps rankings here, Will, this is looking like a game that could decide a playoff spot, especially for Cascade. They are right on that cut line. They're like the last team in right now.
Well, it's fascinating because you're right. Cascade's right there on that cut line, but Garden Valley's like sixth. So you feel like they're pretty comfortably in. So if Cascade goes on and wins this game, they have a better overall record, a better long pin record, and the head-to-head win. I can't see Garden Valley falling out. So now we're talking about 4 long pin teams in the 1A playoffs. That's pretty impressive to get 4 out of 12 out of one league in the 1A classification, potentially.
Yep. And in years past, this league always got 3 when it was the predetermined bracketing. And there were some years, Will, where we kind of thought like, man, they probably could get a 4th in if it were truly just Max Preps at large. But so Council at Salmon River, Horseshoe Bend at Tri-Valley, Garden Valley at Cascade, that Garden Valley Cascade game. That's the one everyone's going to have circled and be keeping an eye on this week in the long pin. Let's go up to the White Pine League, guys. District 2, where let's start with Deary. They played on Saturday. They beat Lewis County 40-14. Nolan Hubbard back at quarterback. He's kind of played receiver at times this year. He's played quarterback. Jacob Meckling caught 2 touchdowns. They moved the ball well on the ground, so Deary picks up the win. They are now 2-0 in White Pine play, 3-4 overall. The other game is the one that was the head scratcher to me, because I'll be honest, guys, I was away from work last week and really kind of unplugged. And so I kind of came back like Monday this week and was kind of catching up on all the scores. And I saw this final score, Timberline 28, Genesee 14. And I was like, what in the world happened here? Will, Timberline is a team that I've thought has had potential. Even the last couple of years, they're so thin on the margins with player numbers that it's hard for them to have sustained success. But this was a real big breakthrough for Coach Pat Christopherson and the Spartans.
Great win for them, and it puts them in position where they now have a chance. The door is open to go potentially, represent the league in the 1A state playoffs. If they can, certain dominoes have to line up certain ways, but they did what they had to do. And I did talk to Coach Podrabski at Genesee over the weekend, and he said, hey, look, we just didn't play good football. Tip your cap to Timberline. They beat us. And so now you've got this whole setup here where the most direct path is if Deary wins, they're in. Deary and Genesee this week. But Genesee, Genesee can win and put themselves in position to go, but they need some help. Timberline has to win, and then they need some help. So there's a lot of convoluted stuff going on in what has turned out to be a very competitive league where you've got 2 league games on the schedule this week, the final week of the regular season, and they both mean a ton. They both matter. And I think that's a good thing. That leads to some excitement, some scoreboard watching, some nerves, some people saying, hey, have you heard the score from the other game? I think it's great. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, in this victory, Aries Maberly, 3 touchdowns on offense, all rushing to lead Timberline to the win. And now, Coach, like Will said, it's one of my favorite expressions. Timberline is in position to be in position. They're right there on the fringes. They're going to need some assistance, but we could see a 3-way tie potentially if everything shakes out here. I did ask so I'll just put it up on the screen real quick here. Here's the schedule of games in the White Pine League. Genesee at Deary, Timberline at Lewis County. Like Will said, the most straightforward path is Deary beats Genesee. They win the White Pine League. If Genesee beats Deary and Timberline loses, then Genesee and Deary each tie for first. Genesee wins the conference because of that head-to-head win. If Genesee beats Deary and Timberline beats Lewis County, you've got a three-way tie for first. Coach, it's settled via the old Kansas City playoff. They'll all get together, date, time, and location to be determined. And most years, it wouldn't be a huge deal, but this year it looks like only one team from this league is going to get to go to the playoffs, and that could be the winner of that Kansas City tiebreaker.
Oh, man. Nothing like a Saturday practice and a Monday afternoon game somewhere to stay alive. But I think rock, paper, scissors might be a little more fascinating, maybe best of 25 or something. But, yeah, win on Friday night and hope for the best. I've never coached a Kansas City playoff. I've arranged a few and watched several of them. They look nerve-wracking to me. They can be over in one play or not. You can play all night. So just whoever, get it done. Play your best ball, and we'll see where it lands.
You know what's funny, and I think who I'm most excited about for this whole thing, and it's going to sound weird, I'm most excited for Lewis County. They're the only team that can advance, right? But it's their senior night, and it matters, right? They can go out and they can play spoiler, and it's been a tough year for the Eagles head coach Monty Madrell. They've had some injuries. They've had some bad breaks. But they have a chance to go out there on Friday night and directly impact who represents the White Pine in the 1A state playoffs. And I think for a team that's had a rough year, that's struggling and that can't move on, to have a reason to be dialed in, to be focused, and to go this week, I think it's great.
Yeah, this was in general a pretty young league this year. A lot of freshmen playing for Lewis County right now. There was only one senior on Timberline. Genesee had a really big freshman class, and you kind of see it, right? All these teams are inconsistent. All these teams have warts. But man, this is going to be a fun league to watch over the next several years. One more wrinkle to the whole procedure here, Will. I heard because there's a referee shortage in District 2.
One of the games might get moved.
Yes. So I think that Lewis County Timberline game might be on Saturday.
Well, and this, I think, would be the third time they've played on Saturday. So that might even make it even better. You might get, the entire town of Genesee down there on one side and the entire town of Deary down there on the other side. It might be fantastic for the gate at Lewis County. They might make a lot of money.
Yeah. If somebody could confirm that, if you're watching in the chat, I'm trying to double check and just confirm that that's what happened, because the schedule at District 2 this year has been very fluid.
And the game is at Nez Perce. Coach Madrell said they're looking to maintain their perfect record at Nez Perce this year.
Yeah, guys, Saturday, 1:00. There we go. So, oh my gosh, nice. Get your popcorn ready for sure. We've got all sorts of good comments in the chat here. Paul Kingsbury, he did a great job filling in last week, guys. It's great to see Coach back this week. We had it written into the contract that if Coach Kirkland was going to come back this week, Paul had to hit the road.
Paul's just brownieing up for the new hat.
Yeah,
that's all Paul wants is the hat.
Well, look at this. Also from Paul, big shout out to Hagerman for spiffing me a couple of hats last Friday night. And then today, Paul got a package in the mail from Brian Hardy, the AD at Valley, with a hat and a shirt. So there's the shout out for Coach Hardy, boys basketball coach, AD at Valley.
Poor Will. Dude, when are you ever going to get some fans, man?
No respect.
Yep. Here's Tyler Reagan in the chat, guys. Nothing better than some 8-man. No doubt about it. Hey, here's Lee J. Cook, the great athletic director from Cary High School. Great job, guys. Go Panthers. We'll talk about the Panthers here in a second. And how about this, guys? Ryan West, co-head coach with Pat Christopherson for Timberline of Weippe, playing in Nez Perce. And he says, we won't be sleeping. So there you go. Timberline's putting on their hard hats and they're ready to go. I'm excited to see how this all plays out. And I don't know, kind of selfishly, I'd like to see the Kansas City playoff. That'd be kind of fun, but we'll see. All right, let's move on to Another complicated league with complicated scenarios. Actually, we'll save that. We'll stay in North Idaho here. We'll go simple and then we'll go difficult. North Star League, District 1. Last week, Wallace defeats Coeur de Christ 50-26. Cooper Miller runs for 250 yards and 5 touchdowns, and they really needed it because Alex Grubbs, who's been a great running back for Wallace all season long, left the game with an injury. Not sure he's going to be able to play in this big matchup Friday night against Lakeside. So Cooper Miller kind of ran the ball, took care of business, and Wallace got the nice win. Lakeside had the week off. They were supposed to play Clark Fork, but the Wampus Cats are just out of guys, and so they had to forfeit that game to Lakeside. And in fact, I believe Clark Fork has forfeited their regular season finale this week as well. And so, Coach Kirkland, this is something we're going to talk about with other teams coming up too. It's just a shame to see those teams that can't quite get across the finish line due to low numbers.
Yeah, and Camas County is there as well. When you talk about the little later, the forfeiting their last game, the kids want to finish strong. I think they've tried their best. They survived as long as they could hold up, and we can give them a little bit of honor for making it as far as they did with only starting with 10 or 11 players, whatever it is. But that's Idaho football some years.
Yeah, and then I got an email just today, guys, as well from Sam Ward, the head coach at Rimrock, and he said Centennial Baptist has forfeited their last game against Rimrock this week as well. Just didn't have enough guys. So Will, Lakeside, the last time they took the field was that toe stub 2-point loss to Coeur de Christ in overtime, 60-58. Then they had this week off because of the forfeiture. So they've had 2 weeks to stew on that loss and get ready for Wallace. As we take a look here again at the 1A standings in the North Star League, Lakeside and Wallace are each 4-1 in this double round robin league. Lakeside won the first matchup against Wallace this year, and then they play Friday night in Wallace. And because Lakeside stubbed their toe against Coeur de Christ 2 weeks ago, Will, this will be a true winner-take-all championship showdown.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty good chance. It's just a one-bid league into the 1A state tournament. So you get these old friends, Wallace and Lakeside, which is in Worley/Plummer, not too far, not a huge distance between them. You know, these kids, they know each other, they see each other, they compete against each other in all the sports. So there's going to be an energy. There's going to be some serious energy at that field on Friday night, and I'm expecting one heck of a show between those two teams.
Yeah, and each of these teams has looked a little different since the first time they met. We talked about Wallace and some of the injuries. Alex Grubbs probably not going to be available. Julian Davis, they think he's going to go. I sure hope he does. Lakeside has had players in and out of the lineup for kind of off-the-field reasons, but first-year head coach Jerry Louis McGee sticking to his guns. When the season started at Lakeside, he said, hey, you're going to be good students first, great people, and then football. And so, Lakeside in a couple of these, the close win over Deary, the loss to Coeur de Christ, they did not have their full complement of players. It sounds like they're going to have everybody finally here Friday night, but we shall wait and see. Guys, this is a game we're going to be broadcasting on IdahoSports.com Friday night from Silverton. The football field is actually in Silverton, which is right next to Wallace. I will be there broadcasting that game, guys, and joining me in the booth, making his media debut, former Mullen St. Regis head coach Stetson Spooner.
Wow.
Right on. Go, coach.
Expanding the horizons. I like it.
Yeah.
We're going to, one by one, we're going to pull all you guys in, coach.
That's what I hear or feel.
Yeah, it's going to be a crowded seat at the table with all the coaches that want to get into the media biz. So I'm excited to call the game with Stetson tomorrow night. Should be a really fun time. A couple more comments coming in here on the chat. Jamin says Genesee Deary will be Friday night. So we confirmed that. And then, like we said, Timberline is going to play Saturday against Lewis County. Here's Ryan Hatfield. Cascade has done a really nice job in a tough conference this year. If they get in the playoffs, they wouldn't be an easy out in the first round. Kudos to them. Well, let's take a look at the teams that are going to be competing with Cascade on that cut line. Certainly, if Wallace falls to Lakeside, Wallace is a team that could be right there in the mix. If Wallace wins, that pushes Lakeside down potentially. Does it push Lakeside down below Cascade? Does it force Cascade out? We'll see. And then there's the Rocky Mountain Conference, guys, District 5 and 6, where last week Rockland defeats Water Springs 60-30. Zach Perman throws for 314 yards and 6 touchdowns. Rockland looks good. They're 3-0 in the league, but they haven't officially clinched the league title yet. Chalice beat Mackey 48-16 as well. And so now we've got what sets up to be, I think, a really fun slate of games here down the stretch. North Gem at Rockland, Mackey at Water Springs. Chalice has the bye. So Chalice is done in the Rocky Mountain Conference. They finished 3-1 in league play. If Rockland defeats North Gem, they're the Rocky Mountain Conference champs. Chalice finishes second. North Gem finishes third. But if North Gem beats Rockland, well, we've got a 3-way tie at the top here. All 3 teams would be 3-1 in the league standings. And from there, it would go to a points differential system with no cap. And so Rockland has already built up a pretty significant lead in this head-to-head points differential scenario where they've already beaten Chalice 36-0. So that gives them plus 36 to start. Now, Chalice only beat North Gem by 2. So North Gem is currently sitting at -2. Chalice is done there at -34. There's no way Chalice is going to be on the right side of a 3-way tie. Basically, Coach Kirkland, North Gem has to win by 20 or more. That would swing North Gem past Rockland in this point differentials thing. What do you like, the point differential tiebreaker better or the Kansas City playoff?
Well, it's certainly be a lot less stressful, I think, but and I guess they have that kind of relationship where running up the score is okay. And so I guess it's kind of up to them. We've done a coin toss before, which is kind of interesting for to break a 3-way tie. But
well,
those guys are interested in the point differential. Have at it.
Yeah. The point differential is going to be interesting. And Will, I was talking to North Gem head coach Corey Hatch just real quickly this week. And he said basically he doesn't like the tiebreaker points differential because he said, I just want my team to win. That should be enough. But now it's not, a win isn't good enough. We've got to go out and win by 20 points. And he said, I just want my team to win. Now I have to go ask them to even go above and beyond that. So it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, and philosophically, I think there are a lot of coaches that are like that. You don't want to walk off the field where, if say you're North Gem, you create this, say, and I'm just making this scenario up. You're down 14 points going into the fourth quarter. You score 3 touchdowns, big dramatic drive in the last 2 minutes, and you score a touchdown right at the end to win by 6. And yet you walk off the field with your dauber down because you didn't win by enough. That's the hard part in that scenario. But I you got old rivalry there. It's going to be intense either way. And I think that and this is what's interesting to me is, I think that there's a fair chance all 3 of those teams, based on the most recent Max Preps rankings, they might get in anyway. It's just a matter of whether they're the champions or they're the at-large. The most recent rankings I saw had Rockland 7, North Gem 8, Chalice 9, which would put them all in. Now 9, Chalice might be in a little bit of murky water depending on what happens around them. But, you mentioned you talked to Coach Hatch. He told me 2 weeks ago that he thought it lined up okay for them to be in either way, win or lose against Rockland. But he's like, I love playing against Rockland. I love Coach Hunter. I love what he does. Let's go. You got a team that wants to throw it 60 times versus a team that wants to run it 60 times. And they'll just go crack some heads and decide it on the field.
And Coach Kirkland, I know you talked to Rockland head coach Jerry Hunter this week. They seem to be getting some of the pieces back here just in the nick of time, but they feel pretty good about where they're at.
Yeah, he's getting a few guys back onto his squad now, and I don't know if those guys have missed a beat. They just missed a few games, and they're definitely going to contribute this week to a very important game to hold off a charging and determined North Gem team. So we'll see how that plays out, and wish the best to both teams for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's wrap up our 1A tour of the action here with the Sawtooth Conference, where Cary defeats Shoshone 50-8. Castleford beat Richfield 40-14. Hanson defeated Camas County 64-14. So 3 pretty decisive victories for Cary and for Castleford and Hanson. 2 good wins for teams that are kind of rebuilding a little bit. Cary has won the conference, guys. They came into the week 5-0. They picked up another win at 6-0 because Camas County had to forfeit their game against Cary this week due to low numbers. So Cary officially 6-0 in conference play, 8-1 overall. Dietrich at Shoshone. The winner of this game will get second place. The loser will drop to third, but both teams are going to be comfortably into the playoff picture. And so let's take a look at the playoff picture, guys. If we look at, again, if the playoffs started today, what would the brackets look like? What would the cut line look like? Who are the last teams in? Who is the first team out? And again, I'm sharing my screen here. If you're watching this, maybe make your screen full size. It'll be a little easier to see everything. But again, there's 5 conferences, 5 district champions, all get automatic bids. And from there, the top 4, according to the Max Preps rankings, all get a first round bye. At the moment, that would be Cary number 1, Council number 2, Rockland number 3, and Lakeside number 4. And then the 5th conference champion, which at the moment we're projecting it to be Deary, they automatically get the 5 seed and they play the lowest seeded at-large team. So who's in after that? If you look at the Max Preps rankings, well, I see 2 second-place teams, Tri-Valley and Dietrich, that are actually ranked 2nd and 3rd in the Max Preps rankings. Tri-Valley actually ranked ahead of Council, Will, and Council beat Tri-Valley.
I can't figure that math stuff out. It drives me bonkers. But that'll be another episode of the 8-Man Prepcast, is Will ranting about math deciding playoff spots.
Yes. So our playoffs, if they started today, it would be number 12 Cascade at number 5 Deary, number 11 Chalice at number 6 Tri-Valley, number 10 North Gem at number 7 Dietrich, and number 9 Garden Valley at number 8 Shoshone. So who's on the cut line here? If you look at the Max Preps ratings over on the right, really, I think the top 9 are okay. They're all on the positive side of the point differential. Chalice is number 9, and their number right now is 4.2. I don't really know what that means. I just know the next team is in the minus, and that's Lakeside at number 10 right now at minus 0.3. Cascade, just 0.2 of a point behind them at minus 0.5. Those are the last 2 in right now, Lakeside and Cascade. And really, Cascade, the last 1 in, because somebody's going to get in from District 1. Will, it sure looks like whoever wins between Lakeside and Wallace is going to get in. The loser is probably going to drop below Cascade. And as long as Cascade doesn't completely flame out here, they're probably going to get that last spot into the postseason.
That's how it looks right now. Again, who knows what the secret sauce, what the formula on the can reads. It's hard to say for sure. If I'm in that neighborhood, if I'm Jared Young, the head coach of Wallace, or Jerry Louis McGee, and the prospect of being potentially 7-2, I think it's what it would be, 7-2 or 6-2, and not making the playoffs due to a mathematical formula. I don't know that I'm ecstatic about that. The old saying, "It is what it is," exists exactly for this conversation. But I think it's great for Cascade that they're hanging around and they've put themselves in a position. They're in position to be in position. Perfect. So now they come out and they play a Garden Valley team that they're more than capable of trading some punches with, but they need to take care of the ball. They can't turn the ball over 4 times again. And like you said, I think if Garden Valley gets up on them and really puts their foot down, I think that could open up a door for the loser of the Lakeside and Wallace game. But who knows? We may not know until, Sunday afternoon at around 3:00 when those numbers normally come out. It might be everybody might be at the church potluck and checking their phones to see when those rankings get updated.
And as we learned last year, it doesn't matter if all the scores have been put in or not. When we hit that deadline, those are the final numbers. We had some scores missing last year when they dropped the brackets, and that was interesting. You might be looking and going, well, 12 teams make it, and Wallace is number 12. Why would they be the first one out? Well, the White Pine champs are going to be ranked below that. Deary is 13th. All 4 White Pine teams are below the top 12 right now. So that's a quote unquote bid stealer there. So that's why Wallace at number 12 would actually not be in right now. Coach Kirkland, I wanted to ask you about, if Wallace goes 7-2 and is out, or Lakeside goes 6-2 and is out, do you think that would maybe cause those schools to reconsider their current double round robin league schedule and maybe encourage them to try, and I know it's costly, but to travel and play some other opponents outside of their league?
Well, I guess the question is, how many years has this affected them in their rankings, and where do you want to go? What are the superintendents interested in, the principals, the coaches really, to travel to Montana to play some of those closer teams, or over the border to Oregon and get some scores there against some higher ranked opponents? So yeah, if you want to get yourself in a higher position, to be in position, go play somebody in a higher position, perhaps on the bordering states there, and give yourself a little better chance perhaps.
Yeah, the other thing that hurt this year, Will, is that when these teams did have 1 or 2 open dates, they played teams from the White Pine League, which also is going to be a 1-bid league. So you saw, Genesee play Lakeside this year, and you saw Genesee play Wallace, and just everybody is just kind of dragged everybody down in North Idaho.
And the geography of Idaho in general doesn't do itself any favors here. If you're Clark Fork and you want to pick up a non-conference 1A game in the state of Idaho, you're looking at 2 hours minimum, and that's to get down to the Dearys of the world. And I don't know exactly how far that is, but I would guess it's in the ballpark of 2 hours to get from Sandpoint down to Moscow. If you want to go farther than that, say you get Cascade on the line, hey, yeah, we'll play you. Clark Fork to Cascade, you kidding me? Who's chartering the plane for that bad boy? It's just it's hard. And obviously the Max Preps math does not favor North Idaho this particular year for whatever reason. It doesn't, and that's unfortunate. But if you're Wallace, if you're Clark Fork, if you're Lakeside, Court of Christ in future years, obviously this will come into play. I don't know how you combat it, short of saying, well, at some point we're going to have to take a 7 or 8 hour bus ride to go play a game.
Yep, and that's the reality of the state of Idaho. Here's Ryan Skaggs, the host of our North Idaho Prepcast, so he's really plugged into the North Idaho. It's robbery, but the playing the 2-time round robin and conference doesn't help the Max Preps rankings. He did add that Washington has some solid 8-man teams in Eastern Washington if they can get them on the schedule. We did see Wallace played St. John Endicott this year. Court of Christ played Welpinit. So, I mean, they did. The problem was
gone that way in the past. They played Tico Rosalia. And as an Oakdale boy, I'm very happy to report that Kendrick put it on Tico Rosalia pretty good. I was happy to see that. So it does happen a little bit.
Yeah. The problem is with the double round robin, you don't have very many open dates in general. So, interesting conundrum, that's for sure. Okay, that'll wrap up our 1A discussion, guys. We're going to take a break.
Only 49 minutes. No big deal.
I know. Sorry, guys. We're getting to the part of the year, though.
I apologize. I'm having fun.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will take a break, catch our breath, come back and break down what's going, because there was some crazy stuff going on at the 2A ranks too. A couple of big dogs thudding to the floor. We will talk about that and more right after this break. You are watching the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
This year, help dreams come true with the Ideal Idaho 529 Education Savings Program. Our easy-to-use tools make it simple to plan for your child's education. With tax benefits, ownership flexibility, Ideal is the perfect way to save for college, trade school, K-12 education, and student loan repayment. Join us at our next webinar to learn more about the 529 plan. Enrolling takes just 15 minutes and you can start with just $25. Visit idsaves.org if you would like to learn more.
Later. Thank you.
Hello?
I was in an accident.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I had my seatbelt on.
Welcome back to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. It's brought to you by Ideal, Idaho's college savings program, along with the Idaho Transportation Department. And guys, it is the final week of our contest that we are running, the Ideal Idaho College Savings Program Idaho 8-Man Prepcast contest. Again, this is available. Yeah, sorry, Will, you're kind of cut off there. This is for any student K through 12. The only caveat is you have to attend a 1A or a 2A school. And essentially, $529 towards an Ideal Idaho Education Savings account will be given to one lucky winner chosen at random. Now, this can be applied to college, trade school, apprenticeships. It can even go into an IRA if you're like, I'm just going to go into the workforce and start that way. It can go into an IRA. So, I mean, there's an option literally for every student out there. The deadline to enter, and again, it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is have your parent fill out the form for you if you're under the age of 18, and then you're entered in. It ends Friday, 11:59 p.m. Don't wait until Friday night to do it. All right, get it in. You got a couple of days to get it in, and then next week, the winning person will be drawn and we will announce the winner. So it's the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast giveaway with Ideal, Idaho's college savings program. Any slackers out there, get to it, apply. If you want more details or you want to apply, you can do so by going to this link, idsaves.org/home/Idaho sports, or ask somebody in your school about it. I sent a big email out to all the athletic directors, all of the principals, all the superintendents for the 2A and 1A schools in Idaho. That was like a lot of people to send an email to. But
that is a lot, yeah.
Yes. You can ask your school leaders as well for more details there. All right, guys, let's get back to what happened in the 2A ranks this past week in 8-man football. We got to start up north. Logos. I didn't have enough time, guys, but I was going to clip what Kingsbury said on last week's 8-Man Prepcast. Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something along the lines of, Logos is going to kick the crap out of Kendrick on Friday night, right?
Yep. He was having a little fun, and he leaned into that one a little bit and had some fun with it. And as it turns out, he was right. He was right. That was an impressive showing from Logos. People want to focus on the offensive numbers. Again, you're talking 30-18. That's a borderline 8-man defensive struggle. And you're talking about, Lucius Comas, 7 tackles, 2 of them for loss. Gunnar Holloway and Ryan Daniels, 6 tackles apiece. Baxter Covington forcing a fumble. To hold this Kendrick offense to 18 points, I don't think you can undersell what an impressive showing that is, from the coaches drawing up the scheme and then the players executing the scheme. Because I still think Kendrick is a top, if not the top team in the classification. But Logos, they got it done, and they deserve a lot of credit.
This game at halftime, Coach, was 12-6 in favor of Kendrick. Logos jumps ahead in the third, 14-12. On the ensuing kickoff, Sawyer Hewitt takes it the distance, and he just committed to the University of Idaho this week, Coach Kirkland. So from 8-man football to the Idaho Vandals, of course, he's been dominating the Kibbe Dome for years in playoff games and championship performances and things like that. So Logos had the lead 14-12. They kick off. Sawyer Hewitt takes it back for a touchdown, 18-14. That was the last time Kendrick would have the lead. That was the last time Kendrick would score. Logos outscores Kendrick 16-0 the rest of the way. And oh, by the way, they did it with their starting running back getting injured. They had to plug in Asaph Greaser, who's normally a slot receiver. He played running back, Coach, and he did a fantastic job. I was just so impressed how Logos got stronger as the game went on and had to deal with all sorts of injuries to overcome too.
Yeah, that tells you how prepared they were. And in my mind, Coach Holloway, since getting beat by Butte, recommitted to the program and to those kids and said, not this year. Not this year. We got a big one coming here in 2 months, 6 weeks out here. It's Kendrick. Mark that on your calendar, boys. And we're preparing right now to get ready. And we're going to be a couple guys deep. And we're going to be ready in every facet of the game. And the defense stepped it up that second half. And they got their extra points to get 16 on the board as well. And so great preparation. And, when you're number one, the target is massive. It is massive on you. And everybody rises, like Coach Holloway says. We rose to the level that Kendrick had set across the state and being a great championship team. And we had to be better. And they found a few ways in this game to get it done. So way to go, Logos Knights. You put yourself on the map, and now you have a great target on you as well.
It snapped a 30-game winning streak for Kendrick. I believe, Coach, I'm going off the top of my head here. I think the previous, before last Friday, the last time Kendrick had lost, I think was to Cary in the playoffs like 3 years ago.
A couple of years ago, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, the last team to hold Kendrick to the 20s was probably us in that championship game in 2021, I think.
It's just incredible. And I loved this quote too. So Asaph Greaser takes over at running back, 10 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. He had a great quote to the Lewiston Tribune. They said, Greaser said the exact moment he scored is a bit of a blur, but he does know one thing. Here was his quote. I definitely got hit by someone and I kept running. You got to love that, Coach.
That's just plain simple football right there. Good job. Keep running, man. Well done. Get across the line and it all counts the same.
Yep. So that was the big result in the White Pine League last week, but also Prairie beats Troy 63-8. Dylan Hewlin caught 9 carries, 209 yards, 4 touchdowns.
That kid is on fire right now. I don't know if you guys have been tracking him, but it seems like he's good for 2 to 250 every week for about the last month.
And he did 209 on 9 carries.
Yeah, the kid's fast. The kid's big. He's strong. And I think Coach Hasselstrom's using him behind some great set of blockers and just getting some wheels going. And Coach Hasselstrom's a little nervous because he's going to get an angry Kendrick team arriving at his house this week.
Yeah, I'm sure he called Coach Holloway and said, thanks, Coach. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I think he's staked down in all 4 directions, and they'll just try to hang on and be healthy.
Yeah. We talked about DeVries getting 4 sacks for Tri-Valley. Well, Matt Wemhoff had 6 sacks for Prairie in this win.
Yeah, he had a good game. He had a touchdown somewhere in there as well. He had a really nice game for them.
Yeah, so Prairie gets the win. They're 6-2 overall, 5-1 in the White Pine League. Kamei beats Potlatch 46-17. David Clute, 15 for 18. That's kind of Jared Goff-esque. 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Clearwater Valley beats Lapway 58-28. Will, this was the signature performance. This was the top star in your Idaho 8-man 3-star awards this week from Tiago Pickering.
Yeah, 484 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. Are you kidding me? And if you live in the Koosky area and you're a Clearwater Valley Ram, Tiago Pickering was one of those kids who was out at the beginning of the year with an injury, and he's gotten back here in these last few games. And he's been very good for Coach Hutchins since he came back from injury. But if you're into the what if game, what if Tiago Pickering was healthy from the get-go? Because there are a couple of games in there that you can probably point at and say, okay, maybe we win those, and maybe instead of at 1-7 sitting on the outside looking in, maybe we're something like 4-4 and have a chance to play some playoff football, because that young man since he has come back has been a difference, particularly on offense for the Rams.
Yeah, last year, 2023, I was on the call for Clearwater Valley's season opener against Notice on IdahoSports.com, and Tiago Pickering took the opening kickoff of the season back for a touchdown, and I was like, oh, this guy can play. And so it's great to see him break out. So he ended up with 484 rushing yards, like you said, Will, 85 yards passing, 561 total yards. And yeah, he had 8 touchdowns rushing. He also passed for a 9th score. Coach Kirkland, what is the all-time yardage and touchdown performance from somebody that you've coached?
I think the most rushing would be Carson Simpson. I think he had 44 carries for 373 yards against Garden Valley a few years ago. But this is quite impressive. That's 1,452 feet. That's 17,000 inches, and the square root of 484 yards is 22. So, for whatever that means, I mean that's a lot.
Wow.
Coach, I want to hear a little more about this 44 carry game. Did you just say, okay, here's the play, hand it to Simpson on one, ready, break?
Yeah, he had, I don't know, something like 60 points that night. 44 carries, ran the ball like 70 times. I think we had 563 yards rushing on the night.
You know what we need, Brandon? And Brandon, I want you to put this together. We need an Idaho 8-man fantasy football league.
Well, we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to keep score by pen and paper, the old school way, off the books. Coach Kirkland, I'm going to put you in charge of that since you're the square root guy.
You're the math guy, Coach.
I'll do some tallying here, boys.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of yards.
A lot of yards. Tiago Pickering, fantastic performance and a great win for Clearwater Valley and Coach Alan Hutchins. And that's going to kind of lead into our coach's corner. Real quick before we do that, let's take a look at what's going on in the White Pine League this week. And again, the standings, Logos has clinched the White Pine title. Even if they lose in their season finale to Potlatch, they've got the tiebreakers over whoever wins between Kendrick and Prairie. So Kendrick and Prairie are going to play for second and third. Kamei pretty much has fourth place wrapped up because they've got the head-to-head win over Potlatch, unless they were to lose and Potlatch would beat Logos. Kamei finishes up at Lapway, and then it's Troy at Clearwater Valley. So the Rams have a good shot here to bankroll 2 wins in a row to kind of conclude their season. They're 1-7 overall. They got their first win of the season last Friday. Real good opportunity against a 1-7 Troy team to get 2 wins, kind of bankroll some momentum for the offseason. And that is what this week's Coach's Corner segment is all about here, Coach Kirkland. For those teams that aren't going to be participating in the playoffs, how do you finish your season strong and with some pride?
Am I tapped out here? Oh, where am I? Okay, I'm on tap here. So, yeah, end of season takeaways here for teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. Just a tribute to you guys and what you've the kind of season that you have and some things to do to finish this season. So we got 21 2A teams that are out there, and 12, of course, will make the playoffs, which means that 9 are out. And 1As, we have 26 teams, 12 make the playoffs, so that's 14 out. 23 total teams complete their season this Friday. I think 3 have already decided they're tapped out there. But some takeaways for you guys that are finishing up your season this Friday are already done. So a couple themes for your team as you end the season, some checklists perhaps for you coaches out there. You should have a team meeting with your players in a school setting, wherever it's out on the field, and let your seniors have a final address to the team and talk about their great memories, what they're going to miss, and then dismiss them and just simply let them walk away. And if the tears roll, that's what you want. That means it meant a lot to them. But you need to honor those guys because it's a great commitment. They've had a great career, and they're all finished. You'll have a night likely where you turn all your gear in, and I suggest you do it in one night as your whole team shows up in single file. Make sure you give them a hug, you thank them, and appreciate them for giving you their all, and make sure even expressing that you do love them. I think kids don't hear that "I love you" phrase very much as they should these days, and you're the coach, and I think they would be proud to be able to hear that coming from you. Have an awards night, man. Get dressed up, look sharp. Coaches, you got to be in a shirt and tie, as well as your athletes. Invite the parents. Honor these kids with medals, MVPs, all-state stuff, whatever they have earned on your team, whatever awards that you may have. Talk about each athlete. They want to hear their names, just like you guys want to hear your schools and your names mentioned here on this podcast. That will mean a lot to them and mean a lot to the parents. Feed those kids. If you're a small school, maybe you can get the tri-tip rolling. Maybe you're a Pizza Hut and you're going to rent the whole place out for the night and bring your parents in. But food goes a long ways, and a banquet to finish is always a great gesture to finish the season. It'll build your program, and the parents will love it as you build trust with them. And then, this season really is over as far as games are, but football should never stop, guys. If we're going to continue to build our programs and maintain the stuff we had this past year and get better next year, keep taking these kids to the playoff games. There's a lot of local stuff that's going on, 8-man or 11-man, and get these kids still excited as they are able to watch somebody else play. Watch those championship games together and start building excitement for the next season right now, because you can create that hunger in them, and they won't forget those moments together. Coaches, what is your end of season checklist? Well, I hope you have an athletic director who's very involved and serious about hiring you as the head coach to represent your school and your community. I hope he sits down with you and asks you hard questions and gives you an evaluation as you talk about your situation and scenarios. Give yourself a self-evaluation on your effort, your progress, and a variety of different things that I'll probably go through here in just a second. And then head coaches, I think you need to sit down as well with your assistants. And first of all, let them evaluate themselves. I always had my coaches fill out a 6-question questionnaire evaluating themselves, and I had them bring it to me, and we talked about those things together. I had them read it to me, what their goals were, how they accomplished those goals, what they were weak at, strong at, and what kind of education they're going to give themselves in the off season. And I would add a few comments along the way there to encourage some positivity and continued effort to help your team next year. That's important. I think you should be doing that, those evaluations. Discuss the positives with your coaches and the things that you need to work on for next year. Write them down. Okay? Write those things down. That's what you should be doing this entire winter. This is the off season, but it's the on season. And you know as well as I do, when you're sitting in your chair on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night watching football, that you have a lot of extra time. I think you should have a notebook in your hand with a pencil or pen. And as you watch things and as things come to mind about next season with players, personnel, strategy, things you see on the TV and football games, you should be recording those. And hopefully by next spring, you'll have a little journal of 15 to 20 pages of stuff that can help make your team better. And I always tried to do that because the hours sitting on that couch. So get yourself better while you're watching the game. And then go to clinics. All right. I cannot emphasize this any louder to coaches out there. I've been to Missoula, 20 times. I've been to Jackpot frequently, to Boise State clinics. And there's so much to offer there. And at every clinic, when I get the handout from the Montana guy that runs that thing in Missoula, I write on the front page the schools from Idaho that attend. And most of the time, it's only a dozen. And many of those schools are local there near Missoula. And that's not enough, guys. That is not enough. We may see some of you Southern guys here in Jackpot a little bit, but we need to be attending those things and getting ourselves better. You can't get better without education. The game is changing, and I think you need to take a look at your strategies, and maybe you're getting out coached. And some of those things, just a touch here or there is going to help your program. So does your program need some updates? Take a look at these items that I've listed right here and that you might talk about with your staff. Was your practice efficient? Is your practice posted? Is it written down where the kids can see it? Maybe even where you can see it. Because I think if we're showing up from work and hopping out of our trucks and going, I think we should work on the offense today, that's not enough. Okay, that is not enough to make your program better or great. Those kids need to have a practice outline, and you need to have an outline as well to help you be better. Was your player and coach relationship good? Did your schemes fit? Did you offer fundamentals, and were they taught well enough in the practice schedule, or did you just throw the ball out and say, let's go? This number 5 one here, are you creating enthusiasm within your community, within your program? That, guys, is going to help you get the numbers out that you need if you can create that enthusiasm, because that's critical in this game. You all know that in these small towns where we have 10, 11 kids showing up in programs, I think there's a few more out there. And I think if you go try and get them and create that enthusiasm from within, you'll get those 13 and 14. Kind of a shout out to Coach Medley at Salmon River. You know, he's got 9 new freshmen in this year. He's been excited to be able to practice 8-on-8 this season, and it's really benefited them to hang into games as long as they have and done well. And he's got 9 more freshmen coming in next year. So there's some enthusiasm being built there, and he's trying to get every single kid out. You know, one of the things we've done at Cary is I coached the junior high every single year since I've been here. And I coached the JV, and I've coached the varsity. And I've made sure my 7th and 8th grade boys have had a great experience, and they know that they're wanted as an incoming freshman. And I've seen Murtaugh starting to do that now, and there was Hanson starting to do that, and a couple other schools in this Castleford in this area are doing that to build it all the way from the ground up. So that's important there. Write down your goals, achieve your goals, and then just some things. How are you guys going to improve next season? Just some self-starters there to keep your program going. And one last shout out here to our seniors here as one chapter closes for you guys. Another one that's going to kick off. You're going to move on and go to college likely, or go get a career somewhere of your interest. But to you graduating seniors, your football career reflection questionnaire right here. What lessons in life have you learned from playing a game? You've given a lot. If you've gone to the playoffs, you've had 60 practices or more a year. Did you give your best? Reflect on that just a little bit as a player there. Remember some of your favorite games, plays, and memories. Those are always great to reflect on and great stories to tell. And number 4, I think it would be important for you to make sure that your coaches know that you appreciate them, along with your friends, your parents, and your fans that are out there. And maybe that can be done in a farewell speech at awards night, but just in general on the street. I think that shows some maturity and some appreciation, because you're going to be moving on into a world where relationships are critical for you to be successful in life. And it all starts right there. And you know, your coach has got your back. So make sure you give some love back to him. And, you know, your school is looking for your help as well. You showing up on the sidelines next fall or practice to those younger kids that you played with is going to be critical to them being having a successful season or a better season, because they know you still got some love for them after you've given your all those years. And number 6, did you have fun? Was it fun? Maybe the season didn't quite turn out the way that you wanted it to. Maybe you got 1 win. Maybe you got 2 wins, but did you have fun? You know, speaking from experience, you may not believe this, but my senior year in '88, we were 0-7. Didn't win a single game, but we still had fun and we competed. We were pretty close in a few games, but we weren't that good, but we did have fun, and that's the most important part of this game. So just a final shout out to you guys that have played your last game here coming up Friday night. Have fun. When you step off the field, make sure you remember that moment, and you look back as a great experience of being able to participate, because most of you probably done putting on a football helmet for the rest of your life. But you've been a shining example, and probably set a tone for those that will follow. So good luck to you guys out there.
All right, another edition of the Coach's Corner with Coach Lane Kirkland. That was really good. What really stood out to me was good teams come and go, Coach Kirkland. But if you don't have that foundation built on solid ground, that's going to be fleeting. That success will be fleeting. You have to build a program from the studs all the way up to the roof, right?
It matters. It certainly matters there. And those guys can really bring along a team that's struggling to play a little bit harder each Friday night.
Will, what'd you think?
I got my pen right here. You said take down some notes, have a pen handy and take some notes. And I'm a baseball coach here in Parma, and a number of those things you said certainly resonated with me, especially considering our baseball program here in Parma. This past spring went to the state tournament for the first time in almost 15 years this past May, and brought home the consolation trophy, which may not sound like much, but when you're struggling, any piece of hardware is very much, these kids were over the moon about it. So a lot of those things that you said really resonated.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. Here's Paul Kingsbury. Coach, my brain just shut off. I don't know if that's an insult or what. I don't know what that is.
He's too busy texting me pictures of all of his hats.
Keep working on it, Paul.
Yeah. Here's a comment from our East Idaho Prepcast host, Sean Kane. Notes from year to year are priceless. And he would know. He is a very accomplished tennis coach at Century High School in Pocatello. Actually, he has won, I think it's 10 or 11 state tennis championships every spring. So he's kind of a good coaching peer, just a different sport, Coach Kirkland.
Well done. Yeah, they certainly are. And, while you're at those clinics, if you go back and review those notes from 20 years ago, you can improve your team just by reviewing your stuff from old times.
Yep. Paul says his comment about the brain shutting off was from your square root math comment. So
yeah, I'm a social studies teacher.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense either.
Yeah. One more here from Ryan Skaggs up north. You guys, you're saying you're men without hats. I'll see myself out. Yep. Okay. We'll dance if we want to. We'll leave Ryan Skaggs behind. Let's go to the rest, and hopefully everybody picked up on that reference.
I got it.
Let's continue on here. 2A football. The other big domino that fell, and we'll get to it. We'll start at the top of the Snake River Conference, though, over in District 4. Raft River taking on Valley. The Vikings officially wrap up the regular season conference title. 48-8, the final. It's their first Snake River Conference title since 2018. Now, they did go up to 11-man football in between there for a couple of years, so it wasn't a total linear progression, but this was a huge win. Josh Hardy, it appears Coach Kirkland is back in at quarterback, 5 of 10 passing, 139 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think they did a pretty good job managing him and having the young guy, Drake Jones, the backup QB, pilot the offense a little bit this year as well. I think that's going to serve Valley well for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's critical reps that Mr. Jones has there at the backup quarterback, and good to see Hardy back. And the efficient offense, only running 32 plays, is certainly getting it done against a good Raft River team.
Kai Ward runs for 155 yards for Raft River, but they just could not find a way to get into the end zone too often there. And I remember when we had our preseason coaches poll of the Snake River Conference, Oakley and Murtaugh were picked in a tie for first. Valley, I believe, was picked all the way down at 4th or maybe even 5th. And they took note of that and they kind of pinned that to the bulletin board. And so for Valley to come through and win the conference title, just a tremendous journey that they've been on this year. Glens Ferry gets a big win last week, guys. They beat Oakley 40-14. Coach Kirkland, you also talked to Coach Eric Stewart from the Pilots a little bit after this one.
I did. He says we had a great second half. Some big stops on 4th down kind of kept him in there, and they were able to contain the Hornets there, shutting them down to just 14 points and putting some 40 on the board themselves. But attributed a lot to that great defense in the second half and getting those big 4th down stops, which is hard to do against a good Oakley team.
Another great game from Landon Stewart. Bryce Sterling did his thing. Here's the guy we haven't talked about a lot this year, Will. Aaron De Leon, 130 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns for Glens Ferry.
Yeah, solid player, and he's just an added weapon for him when you talk about Josiah Valencia, Bryce Sterling, Landon Stewart, who they will do some of those run pass options, but he's more of a thrower. You can see when he runs, it's a little bit more of the, okay, I'm doing what I got to do, but he definitely looks a little more comfortable setting his feet and surveying the field. They've got some weapons, they can do some things, and if they get into that 2A playoff, which I have thoughts on that we can discuss here in a moment, they're going to be a team that's going to present some problems to people.
Yeah, Henry Thomas on defense, 7 tackles, a forced fumble, and an interception. That's 2 big game-changing plays there from Henry Thomas on defense.
I loved him in E.T. He was great in E.T.
So those were the conference games last week. We had
you went with an obscure one with the Skaggs technically.
Yeah, I just show the comments.
You just carried it on, and I make a reference to an E.T. child actor, and you laugh at me.
I'll be honest, I didn't understand. That one went over my head. I didn't. I'm more plugged into music because I used to be a radio DJ than I am into the movies. So
fair enough.
Over my head. But it was good, Will.
Yeah,
you guys need more hats.
My hat's off to you. Wait a minute. Yeah. Hey, Leach wants to know your address. As he said, he'd send you a hat.
Well, I would say it over the air, but then God only knows what would show up in my mail.
We'll coordinate after the show.
I'll tell a story off air as to why I won't do that.
We'll get all that squared away after the show, post game, guys. Okay, so we have the 2 conference wins: Valley over Rat River, Glens Ferry over Oakley, and then a non-conference game that we had on IdahoSports.com last Friday night. Hagerman hosting Butte County. Pirate on pirate crime here. Which group of swashbucklers was going to emerge victorious? It was Hagerman, 30-14. First loss of the season for the defending 1A champs from Butte County. Wyatt Mavenkamp, 3 touchdowns, 178 yards passing. Kai Kendall, 8 grabs, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Seamus Merrill caught a touchdown pass. Now, in this game, Coach, Butte County outgains Hagerman 337-310, and yet they only scored 14 points. I know Coach Thorngren at Butte County says we're going to go back to the drawing board after this one.
Yeah, well, sometimes that happens in games. You outgain them. It only matters when you get across the goal line. That's the only thing that counts, and having 5 fumbles does not help your cause at all, and Hagerman capitalized on that. But with a great game plan and holding off the Butte County Pirates, came out victorious. I think they've had Butte on their radar all season long, and caught them off guard and did a great job in getting a victory over there, shaking up the whole thing, which is what Friday nights seem to be sometimes.
Yeah, so now we've had Valley beat Hagerman, Hagerman beat Butte County beat Logos, Logos beat Kendrick. Hey, it's clear as mud, guys. we know exactly how this thing is going to shake out. I cannot wait for the 2A postseason. Before we get to what the bracket looks like in the schedule of games and everything, Grace beats North Gem in a non-conference game, 48-0. They're getting ready for a big showdown with Butte County this Friday on IdahoSports.com. And then quickly, over in the Western Idaho Conference, Rimrock officially wraps up the conference title there. They defeat Wilder 78-14. Idaho City gets a nice win over Centennial Baptist as well, 63-42. And as we talked about, Centennial Baptist was supposed to play Rimrock this week, but they have forfeited that. So Rimrock is going to get a double bye going into the postseason. They get a first round bye because they're a conference champion. They get the bye this week because of the forfeiture. This will allow them, because I know they have dealt with some injuries this year, to kind of heal up and get ready. What a monumental breakthrough for Coach Sam Ward and the Rimrock Raiders.
Yeah, it's huge. And you mentioned a chance to heal up there. They had to play Ronaldo Gomez a little longer than they wanted to against Wilder because their backup quarterback injured his shoulder. And one of the things that Coach Ward was a little bit concerned about this week coming up was, okay, how do we keep kids sharp? Okay, how do we not get them hurt because they don't have a ton of depth? And how do we do it while being respectful to our opponent and not, perceiving to rub anyone's nose in anything? It was something that was on his mind. Objective number 1, he wants to win the game. Objective number 2, he wants to come out healthy because they've got their first playoff game in, several years. They haven't won one since 1993, for crying out loud. This is a big deal down there. This is a really big deal. And so I think, not that you ever want to see a team forfeit. You don't ever want to see a team not have enough kids to go out there and do battle. You never want to see that. However, if there's a silver lining here for Rimrock, they now have 2 weeks to basically make sure that they are at 100% ready for that first playoff game.
First playoff appearance for Rimrock since 2011. And Will, you mentioned it. The last time they won a playoff game was in 1993. They won the whole enchilada that year, the A4 11-man championship. They actually went back-to-back in 92 and 93, back-to-back champions there at Rimrock in the early 90s. So let's take a look. If the playoffs started today, what would the bracket look like? What would, who's on the cut line, who's in? We talked about it. This seems fairly settled. Again, the 4 conference champions all get first round buys. And 3 of the 4 conferences have been decided. Valley will get a bye. Logos will get a bye. Rimrock will get a bye. All that we have left to decide is who wins East Idaho between Butte County and Grace. Now, the one caveat here is that all 8 quarterfinal teams will be reseeded according to their Max Preps rankings. So Rimrock automatically, by virtue of being 15th in the Max Preps rankings, they're pretty much locked into that number 8 seed here. So Coach Kirkland, if Butte County comes out and beats Grace, they have kind of a big advantage, already knowing who their quarterfinal opponent is going to be potentially.
Yeah, that's a benefit, and you can start to prepare right away. So, yeah, just gotta play your marbles right there, and then give yourself a better chance.
And if it's not Butte County, if Grace gets the better of Butte County, then maybe Logos moves into that position. Somebody is going to be able to prepare for Rimrock on 2 weeks, which is going to be a big advantage. And then the other at-large playoff games over here, they're all seeded according to Max Preps rankings. There could be some movement in these rankings for sure, especially with Grace playing Butte County. They could certainly leapfrog, Prairie and Kamei that are ahead of them in the standings with a win, definitely. But right now it would be Murtaugh at Hagerman, Glens Ferry at Kendrick, Raft River at Kamei, and Grace at Prairie. So who's on the cut line here? The last 3 teams, Glens Ferry, Murtaugh, Potlatch, 10, 11, and 12. This is a 12-team bracket, but remember, Rimrock's down here at 15. They're already in. So really, you've got to finish 11th or higher. Now, if the playoffs started today, Will, Potlatch would be the odd team out. Glens Ferry and Murtaugh would both be in, but there's going to be some movement here because if we look at the schedule this week, Murtaugh and Glens Ferry are playing each other. This is essentially a de facto playoff game.
It is, and this is where I'm probably not going to make a lot of friends in Murtaugh, but I don't understand why. You're talking about Glens Ferry and Murtaugh. They're right next to each other in the Max Prep standings. One team has 5 wins. The other team has 1. They've essentially played the same team. So I don't understand the math, and I don't want to belittle Murtaugh in any way. I don't. I have a lot of respect for the Red Raiders. This just hasn't really been their year, and yet through the magic of math, here they are potentially going to the playoffs with 1 or 2 wins, while a team like Potlatch, who has 5, is sweating it out. And I don't understand that. If Murtaugh was sitting at, say, 3-5 instead of 1-7 at this point, okay, I give it a little bit more credence. But like I say, Glens Ferry and Murtaugh have played mostly the same teams. Glens Ferry has won 5 games. Murtaugh has won 1. And yet there's, we're talking about fractions separating those two in the Max Prep standings. And I don't get it. I don't understand how that happens. If Murtaugh makes it, kudos to them. And I want to see them play to win. I want to see them play to go to the playoffs. As long as you're still in the mix, you should act like you're in the mix, and you should act like you deserve to be there, and you should act like you're going in to get a win in that next round of the playoffs. Murtaugh should try and win this week, and they should try and shove it in my face by going into the playoffs next week and winning a game next week. But again, my confusion comes down to how they're figuring this math. I don't get it. I don't understand why Potlatch is sitting there thinking that they might be the odd team out, while Murtaugh might be in with 1 win. Now, things can change, and this is the joy of the math. We may not know until Sunday afternoon when, hell, for all we know, all of a sudden a school that doesn't even have football pops up on line number 12.
Yeah, and this that was good. That was a good essay you delivered there, Will. The only difference between Murtaugh and Glens Ferry is they even played the same non-conference opponent in Grace, but Murtaugh did play Butte County and Cary, and that's who Murtaugh played. Glens Ferry played Clearwater Valley and Wilder. And
okay, now let me stop you right there. How did Murtaugh do in those two games?
They lost both.
Okay, how did Glens Ferry do in those two games?
Won both.
Okay, at some point, winning the game has to matter.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm with you on this argument, and like even like.
And I don't want to sound like I'm being disrespectful to Murtaugh. I get it, I understand it, and I hope that Coach Young and his players are able to rub my face into it for a couple weeks because they go on a little bit of run here. The rules are what the rules are, and they're just playing by it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, and like even like Glens Ferry beat Raft River, and then Raft River beat Murtaugh. That should count for something too. But I'm with you, Will. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And complicating matters is that Potlatch has probably their toughest game of the year. Correct. At Logos, and you would think, okay, if they fell to Logos, would that give them enough of a nudge in the strength of schedule? I don't know. I just feel bad for the White Pine League, Coach Kirkland, because this has happened 3 years in a row now where a really good White Pine team is going to be left at home because of, and I'm just calling the math like I see it, a District 3 team that is way low in the rankings gets a spot. Now, the last 2 years, it was 2 teams that got to the playoffs from District 3, and both of those years, Prairie was on the outside looking in. You know, we talk about Prairie, the 2 years that T.T. Kane was the head coach, like they fell off a cliff or something. They were a really good team. They just happened to be number 12 in a system where they needed to be number 11. And I feel like I just have a feeling that the White Pine's going to get squeezed out again because of this scenario, Coach Kirkland. It's just tough.
Yeah, and until someone decides to get past the MAC prep ranking and propose a new bracket for next year and allow a certain number to come in from each district like it used to be, that's the only way it's going to get fixed as far as how they finish out. But yeah, it's just how the ball bounces. It's the square root of everything, guys. Doesn't make sense.
I think the Max Preps ranking is better than just ping pong balls and predetermining brackets for sure. I think the next logical step is using the computers and the math as a tool, but also using humans as another tool to balance it out. You know, a committee of some kind. Will, I would nominate you for the selection committee. I'd
have a little fun. I'd like to have a little April Fool's where Alturas Prep is the number 1 seed going in. We'll just find some of those teams and we'll just throw them in there and say, okay, you've got a week to come up with a football team now.
Yep. And here's Alfred Marshall, good supporter from Potlatch. No way should a 1-win team get in the playoffs over a 5-win team. I'm with you. And for Potlatch, hey, if you go beat Logos, you're in easy. No worries about it. But I just feel bad. That Glens Ferry Murtaugh game, we're certainly going to be keeping an eye on. Potlatch and Logos is also going to be a pretty monumental battle as well. And then, of course, on IdahoSports.com, Grace at Butte County, the rivalry renewed, Coach Kirkland. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys.
I was breaking up there, Brandon. What was your question?
Just this Grace Butte County matchup that we're going to be broadcasting Friday night on IdahoSports.com should be a good one.
No, that's going to be a battle over there. We'll see if Butte County can rebound, but I think Grace has got a good game plan coming, and it'll be a shootout over there in Eastern Idaho for sure.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right. Well, we have reached the final week of the 8-man regular season. Next week, guys, we will have actual brackets. I can stop showing my very crudely made brackets with the Max Preps rankings. I'll have actual brackets to show you guys. And we'll break down all the playoff matchups and storylines. It's going to be a lot of fun. Coach Kirkland, Carrie's got the week off now. What are you going to be doing this Friday night?
I think they're going down to watch Shoshone and Dietrich play. they're kind of approaching this 13 days as though it's the beginning of a new season, because you have 13 practices before the first game. So that's where they're at there, and we'll be down at watching that local game.
Okay, Will, you got any plans?
I think there's a pretty good chance I will be dialed into IdahoSports.com and watching a couple ball games.
Yeah, Butte County, Grace, and then I'm going to be broadcasting Lakeside and Wallace for that North Star District Championship too. So that's going to be a lot of fun this weekend. Of course, you can see the full schedule of games that we're broadcasting this weekend on IdahoSports.com. All right, we have gone exceptionally long here. Thank you, everybody, for hanging with us. We really appreciate it. For the coach, Lane Kirkland and Will Hoenike, my name is Brandon Baney. Thank you for tuning in to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. We'll see you next week for the postseason on IdahoSports.com.